Iran-US prepare for Oman talks after deadly protest crackdown. Iran says to hold more talks with U.S., despite Trump military threats. U.S. academic John Mearsheimer fights to purge his AI deepfakes. China rejected calls to enter nuclear talks after U.S.-Russia treaty lapses. The United States and Iran are preparing for high-stakes talks in Oman, marking their first negotiations since Washington joined Israel's strikes on Iranian nuclear sites last June. The delegations will be led by U.S. Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff and Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, with Oman acting as mediator. Iran says it does not want to miss any diplomatic opportunity to preserve peace and hopes Washington approaches the discussions with seriousness. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump signaled that military action remains an option, saying Iran is negotiating because it wants to avoid a potential strike as a large U.S. naval fleet moves into the region. The talks come amid heightened tensions following Iran's crackdown on nationwide protests, which rights groups say left thousands dead. Washington is pushing to curb Iran's nuclear program and also wants discussions to cover ballistic missiles, and Tehran's support for regional armed groups, demands Iran has largely resisted. Global leaders are urging restraint. Germany warned of the risk of military escalation, while Turkey said diplomacy must take priority over conflict. Both sides have issued strong warnings. Iran says it is ready to defend itself and could target U.S. bases if attacked, while the United States has kept its military options open. With warships deployed and threats exchanged, analysts say the negotiations could determine whether the crisis moves toward compromise or closer to conflict. Iran says it expects further negotiations with the United States after a day of indirect nuclear talks in Oman, widely viewed as a crucial test for diplomacy amid rising military tensions. The discussions in Muscat were mediated by Oman, with the two delegations communicating through intermediaries rather than meeting face-to-face. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi described the atmosphere as positive, saying both sides exchanged views and agreed to continue talks, though the timing of the next round will be decided after consultations in Tehran and Washington. Araghchi stressed that the negotiations focus strictly on Iran's nuclear program, rejecting U.S. efforts to expand the agenda to include ballistic missiles and Tehran's support for regional armed groups. The meeting marked the first engagement between the longtime adversaries since the United States joined Israel's strikes on Iranian nuclear sites last June. Tensions remain high. A U.S. naval group, led by an aircraft carrier, is operating in the region, while President Donald Trump has warned that military options remain on the table. The White House says its goal is to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons, an accusation Tehran continues to deny, insisting its program is for peaceful purposes. Oman's foreign minister called the talks very serious, noting they help clarify both sides' positions and identify potential paths forward. American political scientist John Mearsheimer is battling a wave of AI-generated deepfake videos falsely using his image, highlighting the growing challenge of fighting digital impersonation. The University of Chicago professor spent months urging YouTube to remove hundreds of fabricated clips, many showing him making controversial geopolitical statements he never actually made. His team identified 43 channels spreading the fake content. Some videos targeted Chinese audiences with Mandarin voiceovers, while others portrayed him commenting on tensions between Japan and China. Mearsheimer called the situation deeply disturbing, warning that such realistic fakes threaten honest public discourse. The takedown process proved slow and complicated. Because many channels avoided using his exact name or image in descriptions, his office had to file individual complaints for each video, a time-consuming effort that required dedicated staff. Even as YouTube eventually shut down 41 of the 43 channels, new ones quickly appeared with slightly altered names to dodge detection. Experts say the incident underscores a broader danger. Artificial intelligence makes it easier than ever to create convincing false content, shifting the burden onto victims to prove the material is fake. While many of the videos have now been removed, the risk of them resurfacing remains, serving as a stark warning about the growing power of AI-driven misinformation. China has refused to join negotiations for a new nuclear arms treaty, following the expiration of the New START agreement, a pact that for years limited the number of nuclear warheads held by the United States and Russia. The treaty's end removes one of the last major restraints on the world's two largest nuclear powers, raising fears of a renewed global arms race. Washington says any future agreement must include China, whose nuclear arsenal has been expanding rapidly. But Beijing insists its capabilities are far smaller than those of the US and Russia, and has made clear it will not participate in disarmament talks at this stage. Currently, the United States and Russia control more than 80% of the world's nuclear weapons. China is estimated to have at least 600 warheads, significantly fewer than the roughly 800 each allowed under the now-expired treaty, though it has been adding about 100 warheads annually. Global leaders and activists have expressed deep concern. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called the treaty's expiration a, quote, grave moment, warning that the risk of nuclear weapons being used is now higher than it has been in decades. Religious leaders, NATO officials, and survivors of atomic bombings have also urged restraint, fearing the world may be drifting toward another nuclear confrontation. Meanwhile, both Washington and Moscow say they regret the treaty's collapse but are no longer bound by its limits. The United States continues to push for a broader, modern agreement, arguing that meaningful arms control in the 21st century is impossible without China at the table.